of the apartment to find Ma, pale and trembling as she sat on the edge of the couch and dialed Dad's cell over and over and over. On the coffee table in front of her was a crayon sketch I'd made in kindergarten the year before of Ma, Dad, and me. I'd drawn in all of our numbers, and Ma had proudly tacked it up on the fridge, where it had gotten buried under other artwork, coupons, and love notes from Dad. But that day, Ma had pulled the drawing down, circled the figure of my dad with a pencil, and while the TV broadcasted images of a standoff between a gang of drug dealers and the Brooklyn PD, she'd kept dialing and dialing and dialing. Donnie sat down on the couch and pulled me into his arms, but all of his attention had been on that broadcast. I remember so vividly the images from a helicopter circling above a huge warehouse, the chopper sending shaky images of men that looked like ants crawling over the rooftop, while small sparks of gunfire flashed repetitively from the muzzles of their weapons. The news reporter kept saying there were multiple officers down, and even at 6 years old, I knew that scene meant terrible things for us. We learned later that Dad had left his cell in his patrol car. He'd gone into that warehouse to back up his buddies in blue, and he'd never come out. I've since been haunted by the feeling that Ma wasn't the only one who'd put it together as she dialed and dialed and dialed. What if it had finally clicked for Dad when he'd entered the building, and that hail of gunfire had erupted all around him? And more important, why hadn't it clicked for me in time to save him? That's another question I can't seem to answer. How come I can see the exact date that someone will die, but nothing else about the how, where, or even why? What good does it do to know the when if you can't know at least one of the other three? Also, why am I seemingly the only person on Earth who can see these numbers? Why did fate choose me for such a cruel gift? It's a question I've asked myself 1,000,000 times, and I'm still looking for the answer. I think there may not be one, because knowing when someone will die has never changed anything. I've never saved anybody or given them more time. I'm just the messenger. That's what Ma says to me all the time when one of my clients doesn't take the news so well. Knowing that there's nothing I can do to help them get more time still doesn't take the sting out of it, though. I started reading for strangers a few years ago, after Ma lost her part-time job. I knew she was really worried about money, so I didn't argue with her when she proposed charging people for telling them their death dates. After a slow start, we now get about 12 new customers a month. There's a little room at the back of the house where Ma likes to seat them. The room is dim and gloomy. I never go in there unless I've got a client. When I do a reading, I have to focus on the forehead of the subject in question, and the numbers themselves are always the same. Kinda small, less than 1/2 inch in size. They're black and thin but perfectly etched, like you'd see printed in an obituary. They hover over the foreheads of everyone I see. Even in a photograph or video, they're visible to me. It's why I don't like going to the movies or watching a lot of TV. I know when every star in Hollywood will fall. Because the numbers themselves are small and thin, I need to be within 4 or 5 feet of a person to clearly see their numbers. But if someone wears a hat, or has bangs or very dark skin, I need to be even closer. Beyond 5 feet, the dates get fuzzy and start to look like wispy dots, unsightly smudges on otherwise unmarred faces. When I walk the halls of my high school, those smudges are a constant reminder that death is a mere squint away. I try not to think about the people who don't have a lot of years left, but it's really hard. I'll pass them in the halls at school, or see them around town, and I want to wince when they go by. Their numbers flashing over and over again in my mind, like strobe lights at a traffic accident, daring me to walk past them and forget what I've seen. It can be pretty hard to deal with, so a few years ago, I started a notebook where I'd write down all the death dates for everyone I know or meet. I add about 10 to 15